Well, we heard after the season that Brad Holmes kept his receipts from last year's draft in regards to positional value, running backs, tight ends, linebackers, off-the-ball linebackers. I only have one receipt that I'd like to cash in at this time. I thought that they should have done this deal last year. And if they had done it last year, they probably would have saved about $7 or $8 million a year. It would have been about a $45 million deal because that's what the market was at that time. And that's what Jared Goff had accomplished at that time. Now, fast forward another year, takes him to an NFC Championship game. We saw last year, whether it was Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, we even saw Joe Burrow during training camp. They raised the value of what a starting quarterback, a tier 1 or tier 2 quarterback, is going to be paid. And Jared Goff has, again, reset the market. Whoever is next will set the market again. It's only going to continue to go up. They could have saved themselves about $8 million a year over 4 years. That's $32 million. If you're looking to sign a guy like Aleem McNeil, you can fit him in that salary cap saving. So that's the only problem that I have with this is I felt that he had done enough over the course of his career, not just what he did here in Detroit. And what I thought he could be was a quarterback that could lead you to and win a Super Bowl. He hasn't done that yet, but you make this investment now at $53 million a year, and you're paying more than you needed to pay. Now, on the flip side of that, there's always two parties that have to get this done. Maybe it was Brad Holmes that wanted to do it. I read off a quote from him about how he has been a big fan of Jared Goff's. He thought that he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback his entire career. And maybe it was he was ready, but Dan Campbell wasn't. And until they are in agreement, they're not doing something of this nature that is this big of a ticket item until they both really believe that this is the quarterback that could take him to a Super Bowl. There's also another variable, Jared Goff. Did Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes say, yeah, we should get this done this offseason? And they started negotiation. One thing I really can appreciate about how Jared Goff has handled this, as well as the Detroit Lions and mainly Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, is they haven't taken any of the conversations public. They have always remained, this is between us and Jared Goff and his representation. We're working on something this offseason. Last week he said, yeah, he's earned an extension. That was the most that they had said about trying to get something done since Jared Goff has been here. So it could have been that they wanted to do it last year, but Jared Goff said, no, I'm going to bet on myself. I want to put together another year, and I want to let some of these other contracts play out. But this, to me, I'm the big guy of saying, let it play out. This is a situation where I didn't want it to play out. I felt like he was that quarterback that the Lions needed, and it's only going to cost them more the further you push it down the road. They finally got it done yesterday, and it costs them $53 million a year.
The irony of you labeling something a mistake because they let it play out.
Yeah.
That if they had not if they had just made a rash, it wouldn't have been a rash decision, but if they had made a decision earlier, they would have saved themselves a bunch of money. To your point, we had never seen a quarterback deal average $50 million a season until last year.
Right.
Now it is the marketplace that which all the other quarterbacks who will be extended will use. So Jordan Love, you're going to go, that guy's not worth $50 million. He's going to go, this is the going rate. There's now 5-6 guys making $50 million a year. You think I'm one of the great young quarterbacks in the sport, Green Bay, right? Pay me. And Dak Prescott, he's got the Cowboys over a barrel. He's going to go, it should start with a 6, and who knows if he gets there or not. When you wait, you pay more. And this discussion was had on this show, right? And throughout the station a year ago. You wanted to get it done a year ago. Tom wanted to get it done a year ago.
Same reasons that John said. We were out in front of this about March of 2023. That if you believe in him, what changed? He had almost an identical season statistically. Actually, if you want to split hairs, he was slightly better 2022 than 2023. You can either use QBR or QB rating, whichever one you like is the universal stat that show. He had 12 picks last year. Only had 7 in 2022. I think Brad Holmes knew what he had when he acquired him.
Yeah.
No, From day one, I have said I actually thought, I was in Camp Rico when they acquired Goff, that Goff may potentially be a part of the future. For all the people out there that, how dare we criticize anything now? I'd love to hear from people who thought Goff was maybe the solution from day one because he was a throw-in. That's what everybody said. I never thought this day would come. I thought they would try to make him work. I never thought he'd get this. I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, look, a constructive criticism, and since you said it last year and I said it, I can cash this receipt.
Sure.
Brad Holmes, maybe I don't buy that Goff bet on himself. Look, is it possible?
It's possible. I'm not saying that happened. I'm not saying it was Dan Campbell that was the holdup or Brad Holmes. The fact of the matter is they didn't do the deal last year when it would have cost them less because the going rate for a franchise quarterback was less. Every year that you wait, it's going to continue to go up. And I've always been, when I say play it out, let it play out, I want to see more evidence. I want to see what comes to light because then you have more information is what you want to make your decisions on. And at February and March of last year, I thought we had seen enough evidence, enough information to say, let's sign him and make sure that we can get him at this year's going rate instead of next year because nothing changed.
So last year's going rate was about 45. You look at Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, those have been the comparables. Let's set Goff at 45 instead. Now it's 53. That's your $7-8 million.
Yeah.
What I called a certainty tax because I was not someone, you guys know this, who believed that Goff was this guy.
Really?
And so I wanted some certainty. I wanted to see him replicate what he had done in his second year with the Lions because his first year with the Lions was not very good, and his last year in Los Angeles was not very good, and I wondered how much is he a product of a good football team? So could he be a driving force? And he was big in the playoff games. So for me, then I could say, fine, is it $8 million you'd rather have? Yes. I'll pay for the certainty of knowing when I make that level of commitment, the largest contract in the history of the Detroit Lions, I better damn well be sure. I'm okay with the fact that they waited. I think it's fair if you want to offer it as a criticism today, but I don't blame Brad Holmes for wanting to get one more year of evidence that they were comfortable making that commitment.
It's constructive criticism, too. Look, I love the deal. I just think they could have done this last year and saved some money and maybe saved a player. I think John's spot on with this. This was our point from back then. I mean, to me, if you can't buy into that critique, I actually think you're a blind Brad bot. I do. I actually believe this is my personal opinion. I believe Holmes maybe wanted to do this last year, and not everybody in the organization was on board. And my guess is that Dan Campbell was pretty critical of Jared Goff. People forget the first 7 games of 2022 when they were 1-6, and he was throwing pick sixes like they were on discount or something. Mm-hmm. I mean.
Who was he throwing the ball to? Who was he protected by? Like, there's a lot of different reasons why
Sewell and St. Brown were there.
Yeah, but Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't really come on until the back half of that year.
Correct.
And another contract that I think you could use as to why this should have been done last year. We talk about the high end being obviously Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert. All right, does anybody think that Jared Goff last year was going to be paid as much as those guys? No. But Daniel Jones, who signed a contract at $40 million, so you would have been somewhere in between. Obviously, he's better than Daniel Jones and should be paid as such, but it would have been right around that $45 million mark.
They paid a certainty tax. Are you okay with it?